Your name's not down, you're not coming in.
Hey there, just a quick message ahead of this episode to say we hope you like the rebrand, which includes a new website, rawuk.com. That's the URL. On there you can listen to and watch all our previous content. You can get extra content. You can also buy our first ever Raw merchandise and even sign up to become a Raw member, which will keep us going and keep you at the heart of this exciting journey, earning perks in return. We need your support, so please do check us out at rawuk.com and remember to like, comment and subscribe to everything we do on all our channels. And of course, make sure you tell all your pals. But most of all, enjoy this latest episode. Cheers. So as we continue into this Stu Allan episode, I want to talk to him a little bit more about production and also happy hardcore, because he is famed for his happy hardcore. And we'll bring you up to date and find out exactly how the last year has been and what he's been up to in the 20 long years since the end of the 90s rave scene. Stu Allan is still here. Hey, Stu, how you doing?
Oh, I'm all right. Oh, getting a bit comfy.
Good man, good man. Well, listen, aside from the DJing and the radio, which we talked about in the previous episodes, you are also a producer. What was it that led you into production, and what was the first track that you released?
Well, it's just an obvious thing, isn't it? If you like music, and I think anybody who loves music wants to record it and have a go. And that's what I did. I just messed about in very sort of primitive stuff, recording equipment back then, or like Tascam 4-track stuff and whatever. Terrible. But yeah, it made you be creative, and that was important. And then I got the chance to do something down at a guy called Les Adams, which a lot of you, and another one who's sadly not with us anymore. But I got really good. I've always been very good friends with him, and he had a studio which I just went and messed about with, and and it became, after the original production was for this. This was back in early 1990, really, and I went down to another studio to finish it off, and that became, I went under the name of Catch. And it was a track called Free Come On, which Pete Tong signed to FFRR at the time for quite a few quid, actually. But anyway, not that I saw too much of that. But anyway, yeah, that was my first official release. Yeah, it was.
Did you enjoy production, or did you prefer DJing and see it as necessary in that field? Because you say God, yeah, as though it's obvious, but a lot of the producers we speak to say that it's incredibly frustrating and hard work.
Yeah, I just it was, to me, it was fun, and I suppose, again, I didn't have a plan for that either. Maybe in hindsight, maybe I should have done, but I never did. I just made the track because I wanted to, and it did, it did well in its own thing. Made a few quid out of it and that sort of thing. But and I never thought of it as hard work. It just because I wasn't. Yeah, I suppose because I didn't have a plan, I wasn't taking it overly seriously in that way, you know what I mean? Where, the plan's not working, you know what I mean? I was DJing and doing radio and everything anyway. So, but I always wanted to make, music without a doubt. I did, even from the days of being in a band, of course, in the late 70s, you know what I mean? You just want, it's just another way of making music, really.
Oh, you had an early track featured on an EP with Carl Cox, who we talked about quite in detail in the previous part. How successful was that venture? And and if it was successful, why didn't you do more?
Well, it was, it was an EP from. He started this label, MMR, more music records or something, or most music records, something like that. And it was just an EP and of artists that were on his roster at the time, and he went on the name of Conquer, and I had a project that I'd already had as Visa, so I just did this thrashing sort of like Euro banging techno-y sort of, like a bit Belgian-ish really, and I just went under the name of Anti-Visa, a bit like the Anti-Capella sort of idea really. And just threw that on the EP, and it became quite massive at the time. Yeah, unbelievable. yeah, that was 93, I think, something like that. I can't remember the exact year.
If it was that popular and massive, why didn't you do more? Is that to do with Carl leaving?
Well, I was yeah, for that label, yeah, that was just like a big thrashy thing. But the Visa thing I did a year before, I think, called "Let Me See You Move," and that was like another bit of a legendy tune. But yeah, that became pretty big. And then different mixes of that again on Carl's label. He did a mix, and then I did updated stuff. But I went on to do other bits, but it was a time finding enough time because of
everything else that you were doing.
Yeah, it was, and you know, I had to sort of like, oh well, never mind, sort of thing. Really, I suppose it would have been nice to have done a bit more, but yeah, it didn't really matter, you know, at the time.
We had a question in from Joe Smale, and it's a sensitive one, so it's quite a long question, but I'm going to read it all. I think it's worthwhile reading the whole thing. He says, "I don't know if this is appropriate to ask. Well, I did check with you in advance whether you'd be okay with it, and you are, so I'm going to continue with it." He said, "It's very interesting. Stu's track, 'Hi, I'm Chucky, Wanna Play,' was used as some kind of sound effect for the torture in the tragic kidnapping and murder of Suzanne Gapper in Manchester in 1992. He said, obviously, it's got nothing to do with Stu himself, and he's not for a minute suggesting he's implicated, of course, in what happened. But it's an incredibly rare thing to have happened for an artist, to have find out that your work has been co-opted in such an awful way. And so Joe wonders what kind of effect it had on you when you found out, and whether it changed things for you in terms of producing music, because he points out, and this may not be linked, and you'll be able to tell us, that your productions in 92 seem to move away from that sort of dark side sound into more of a happy territory to a certain extent. And he wonders whether that was anything to do with it. And he says, he points out, I ask in genuine interest, and mean no disrespect either to Stu or to the family and friends of Suzanne. But it must be a crazy thing to have happened to a young producer.
Well, yeah. Obviously, I knew nothing about this until it was, the Greater Manchester Police just phoned me up. It was a detective, and he said he wanted to speak. Can he come round and speak to me about a tape that he's got? And mainly, it was in where she was tortured. There was cassettes lying around, and they were just of my show, really. They'd recorded my show, which lots of people did, and they were lying around. So that was the main reason for him getting in touch. And he said, but we've got this one cassette, and it's the whole side of a C90, and he just says the same thing all the time. They didn't know what it was. They didn't know what it was from a song or whatever. And I said, well, they were in my house, the detective. So I just put it in a cassette machine, played it, and it was the "Hi, I'm Chucky, Wanna Play." You know, they crudely edited it over the pause button because there was like a big click at the end, and there was that taken from what I'd sampled that onto my tune.
I'm Chucky, wanna play.
And they just done that. They just recorded that over and over and over again. And played that to her as part of the torture, which turned my stomach a little bit, really. And when I found that out, because he's going, oh right, so that isn't how it goes. I said, no, they've crudely edited it together, you know, with a pause button and whatever. So that was the story of that. And yet, when I heard that that's what happened, I didn't really want to play it again after that. I stopped playing it. Yeah, I just thought, oh God, this is horrible. And obviously hearing the track made me think of how, you know, the horrible things that went on for her and everything. So yeah, I did stop playing it on the radio and evening gigs, and left it for probably a good couple of years or more, really, before I even thought about digging it out again, because it was in the news. It didn't say, oh, it was on a Stu Allan tune, because they didn't mention me or anything. It was just, they mentioned, you know, the CHUCKY and whatever. So yeah, I didn't want to be linked to that, to be quite honest.
So you didn't play it, but did it impact upon your production at all?
No, not at all. I just felt horrible for that one track, to be quite honest. Yeah. And I just carried on. The following year, as it would have been 93, I was doing other things. Yeah, that's where.
Well, well, we'll talk about that very shortly. But here's a follow-up question for that. Then you sampled that from Child's Play.
Yes,
which obviously is a famous horror tune, which again has links as well to Jamie Bulger. That would have been, you know, probably before. You know,
right,
it's not.
Yeah.
We're not linked at all, but it has been used. Did you then not? Did you avoid then sampling horror?
Yeah, I thought it's best not to. I don't know. At the same time, though, you know, the horror-y type things, especially in hardcore, some of the Gabba tunes, the stuff they've sampled in there. But yeah, I just thought, well, it wouldn't have. If I'd have heard another sample, you know, in something. I mean, in fact, I did have stuff, but they weren't released. There were stuff from, you know, Hellraiser and things all sampled in there, but I just never released them. But not for that reason, though. You know, it was just unfortunate for that one tune, really. Okay. You know, so I just moved on, and yeah, you know, it was horrible at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine it must have been a shitty time. So you mentioned Clock. So now we're going to move on to that. You found chart success. This is the pop star bit, right? That we hinted at in the intro, the intro of the part one. You were one half of popular Eurodance act Clock. Tell us how that came about.
Well, all that was in '93. Yeah, I just had an idea for a tune. That's all it was, and went down to Media Records in London to record it. And it became what was Holding On. It was just called Holding On. And so I had no plans to whatever. It was that I want to make a tune, and that's all it was, you know. So Media immediately signed it. They said, "Oh yeah, this is great." It was doing, you know, it's just one of them big clubby tunes. No one knew it was me. Came out as a thing with Clock on it. I just decided to call it Clock, Holding On. Even Paul Oakenfold put it like #1 in his, you know, like people used to have DJ charts. Oh, a great new Italian outfit, you know, and all this. No one knew it was me at all. But anyway, that was that. And then because there was a big success for that one track, they said, well, we need to do something else. So I did another thing, and I thought, okay, it wasn't the most underground tune in it anyway, but it was big in places like Bowlers and whatever. I just did this other one that could cross a little bit, and I think that second one was something like Keep the Fires Burning. I can't remember, but it had something. But we put Holding On there, and because Holding On was on the B-side, on the 12-inch, it reached the top 30. And I was like, oh, God, that's quite incredible. So from that bit of success, they said, right, well, we need something else, and it'd be great if it went a bit higher. And, you know, obviously, this is what record companies are like, you know, bigger companies. So I think, right, okay, well, and that's all it was, really. I never in a million years planned to make music that was for the charts in that way, you know, really, not at all, you know. And then we did this, I did a remix of Nile Rodgers' version of Axel F, and completely transformed it, as you can imagine, which sounded like a Clock track with this kicking bass drum and all very uplifting and big synths and everything. And I had it, but it's still, you know, it's still a cheesy track, even though it still sounds good, if you see what I mean. But I was like, well, okay, if this is what the record company want, they wanted this as a remix anyway. So I've just made it that week. They cut what's called an acetate of it for me. So try it out in the club somewhere. And I went, yeah, well, okay, I'll give it a go. And I was at Bowler's and it would have been 93, 94. The place was absolutely wrong. There was at least, in the dance floor area itself, there was at least 3,500 people, all going absolutely mental to everything I was playing. All very high energy stuff, back then. And I thought, I'm going to bung it in and see what happens. And I remember putting it on, thinking, I'm going to get fucking slated for this now. I thought, I've got to test it. I'm just going to test it. And as soon as I mixed it in, I was reaching for another obvious tune out of my box in case the dance floor just died or they were throwing things at me or whatever. And by the time it got to the main big riff, there was everybody's hands were in the air going, fucking yes! And no one was more surprised than me. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
God bless drugs, Stu. You might not take them, but I tell you what, they're handy sometimes.
Good old Thraxer left anyway. So yeah, I couldn't believe it. So what was a very commercial track and all the rest of it. So from that, I took it away and made a slightly different version and released it as a clock release. That was the first top 10 hit from Clock by just doing that.
Well, remarkable, right? 14 top 40 hits. 4 of those reached the top 10. I mean, how did that feel for you, for your parents, for your families? How did they react to this? All of a sudden, you've got this pop fame.
Well, yeah, I mean, on purpose, I never, the fame wasn't for me. It was for the act that we had, who were great. Marcus and Lorna were the act that everybody saw. I just made sure the music that was released was right for them, So, I was well out of the way at the top of the pop. They don't want to see some old git on top of the box going, I left it to those who knew what they were doing. So,
okay. So
from all that, I mean, my mum and dad just at the time went, oh, that's good. And that was it, really. They didn't quite get it, but they were very happy, obviously. And anyone else was just going, wow, people like, I was doing my show on the Sunday when the first top 10 and even the boss of Key 103 phoned the X-Directory line during my show and congratulated me, which was very nice. Keith Pringle, if you're watching this, I was always, appreciated that phone call. Yeah, it was nice. It was all nice. But it just happened. I know it was all pop music and whatever, but I was, doing other things, as well. But it was one of them where they wanted something else. And it was fine. Just did other mixes. I just did hardcore mixes,
So you didn't necessarily get the sort of trappings of fame, but what about fortune? Patrick Kelly on Facebook asked, was it lucrative? And did you have to pay loads for the covers and for the samples?
Well, I didn't earn anywhere near as much as I possibly could have done.
Twas ever thus, Stu.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go into all the boring detail, but no, the deal was pretty rubbish for me. But it just the way it was. But I'm not going to moan about that now. But sampling wise, I didn't sample, which is extremely important. Obviously, if you're going to sample and you want to pay for that or whatever, that's less, isn't it? But no. Any vocals, I made sure I got decent singers in to make them sound like the originals. Sampling was just, if something sounded like something, it was a sound of something else, So yeah, that was it, no sample. But obviously, if you do a cover version of something, then you have to give the royalties to whoever wrote it, and obviously rightly so, So yeah, but yeah, it wasn't as lucrative as it should have been.
Okay, so it wasn't lucrative, but it did give you some money. Well, I hope it gave you some money. Otherwise, it would have been. That's the worst deal in the world. But you did make some money. What did you do with that money at the time? Did you invest it, and has that helped you latterly?
Yeah, obviously, it just helps with buying a nicer house at the time, and and affording the mortgage, and and obviously you don't shit yourself and a bill turns up. It's that kind of thing, really. But that's, that doesn't last forever. So, I just haven't been stupid with my money, luckily. So, I just plod on and still be happy. But yeah, it'd be nice to earn some more now.
Well, of course. I mean, it's always nice to earn a bit more money, isn't it? You mentioned you remixed Nile Rodgers. You also remixed Peter Andre, which some people might not know about. That's quite a shift in direction, really.
Well,
so what was Nile Rodgers like, firstly, to work with?
well, no, I didn't meet him, unfortunately, because he is a legend. Absolutely, even back then, he's more of a legend now than he was even then. But this is like, mid-90s. No, unfortunately, we're in communication, saying, "No, you're not supposed to use that. That's my synth," and blah blah blah. So we had an argument over, "No, it isn't. I did that." All this kind of nonsense. But yeah. He probably hated what I did.
So was he difficult to work with then? I mean, if you those sort of even in those communications where you didn't necessarily even speak, was he quite demanding because he's got high standards or what?
No, I just think he did his version, and when he was probably told that there was going to be a dance version, he probably just didn't understand that sound at that time. You know what I mean? But it worked for commercial UK dance floors, whereas his version wouldn't have done. That's all it was, really. But yeah, what a guy. I mean, I love the guy.
Well, and from one musical legend to another, what was it like working with Peter Andre? I've met him, by the way, quite a few times in my career.
Again, he had no idea. No, he seems like a nice guy, but I don't know him, and I've never met him. But
did he like your work?
No idea. It was just one of them, when you become whatever, there's a bit of a name. They go, can you get them to do a clock mix of that? And it was a bit, because I think the original track was just some dreadful poppy sort of tune, and I just made a housey version of it, and even my version wasn't that good, but it made the CD apparently. So. A big non-event for me in my life, I have to say.
But Peter Andre still talks about it, so We really hope you're enjoying yet another one of Raw's in-depth interviews about the rave scene, which we are proud to say are now all curated into the British Library Sound Archive. All of us here at Raw HQ love how much you love what we do, and your generous one-off donations have been a huge help in covering our initial costs. But we're now a team of 5 putting in a combined 80 hours a week for no wages, with big plans to expand further, and so our costs are going up. As such, we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing, as you've seen us do since our launch in July 2020. First up, go and check out our brand new website. It's rawuk.com, where you can find loads of cool extra content, and you can grab Raw's first ever range of merchandise. That's rawuk.com for our new flashy website. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can support us financially to create more content on an ongoing basis for less than the price of an oat milk cappuccino, plus you get great perks in return. Head to patreon.com/rawukpods. That's patreon.com/rawukpods to see exactly what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is basically the same. Or if you're not asked about a membership, but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or a repeat donation, then head to our website and click the PayPal link. A reminder of that new website URL, yet again, rawuk.com. Big love and respect to you all. Please keep supporting us. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the act. Back to the rave scene and the rave stuff. Your work under Visa alias around that time as well really took off, especially with tracks that featured on the legendary Bonkers compilations, which anyone who's listened to this will know exactly what they were. What was it that made you go down that happy hardcore route?
Well, it was just a progression of, Visa didn't start off as happy hardcore. I did Let Me See You Move was originally in 91, and that was just a ploddy, techno-ish track of its time. And then more remixes came later, to sort of suit the era. I think 93 was the next time there was mixes. And if you were going to do some hardcore, that era after 93, 94, 95 was happy hardcore, really. And certainly in the scene I was DJing at that time, anything dark and whatever regarding hardcore I wasn't involved with. So, yeah, you just make sure they're banging away, great melodies, and everyone's just having a good time. Hence the term, I suppose.
And were you really into that stuff? Because it's interesting. You've done so many varied things. Been into some really intelligent music, and I think we can be reasonable and say that happy hardcore in the mid-90s, while it was fun and we all enjoyed it, not all of us. Some people who watch this going, "I didn't enjoy it," but a lot of us enjoyed it, and it was fun. It wasn't. I don't think you can say realistically that it was particularly intelligent. So, were you really into it?
Well. It depends. Not all of it at all. It depending on, because when you say it's not intelligent, the intelligent bit.
I should point out that I'm not saying it's not intelligent. I'm just saying
I know exactly
some of the other music that was being made, it's perhaps not as highly well produced. It's not as well thought through. But it's fun and people like it. So I'm not doing it down.
No, I know you're not slagging it off at all. No, production wise was a bit at times, a bit screechy and whatever. So I tried not to do that, although it was a lot, just a big kick in there, big synths, melodic sections, nice strings, and try and produce it and mix it as well as you would do almost like a clock song, if you see what I mean. So all the effort and everything goes in, and people did notice that, and I'm really happy that they did. I wasn't trying to make anything commercial or pop. It was on those lines, but for the happy hardcore crowd, don't go away and.
Let's keep our love forever. Don't go away. It's only when I'm with you makes me feel this way.
Fly away.
Let's fly away to a land where we'll be free. Your smile.
People still like to hear that one. And I made sure that the vocals are absolutely bang on, and the balance of the synths and the beats and the bass, all that sort of thing has to be produced nicely, so it just sits better than another one in someone's set, really. Okay. So that was important, and tried to make it a bit more intelligent.
Well done, you. Did you enjoy playing out of the 90s happy hardcore? So because we explore this a lot in this podcast. It was massive. It was huge. It was the biggest music scene in the country at that time for a brief period. Admittedly, did you really enjoy playing out on that happy hardcore circuit? What were those times like?
Yeah. It was like the extension of what was going on 92, 93, where it was all, more underground and whatever. And then 94 came and there was slightly extra bits coming in, with like a thumping drum rather than a breakbeat, but the breakbeats were there, but it was done in a more dancey way, you know what I mean? One of them, and then 95, a bit more of this, put some more vocals in it, might be horribly pitched up, but it worked, you know what I mean? It didn't really matter. And then more sort of original productions started coming in with actual singers, rather than samples. And they were a bit screechy for my liking, some of the productions, but they were a lot. Some of them became anthem, Force and Style starting off and things, with Heart of Gold and all those sorts of things. And they were just hugely popular. But as time went on a little bit, with that scene, I kind of thought, I've played enough of it now, really, to be honest. And I think a lot of other DJs did, towards the end of the 90s, just got less and less interesting of that style, which was quite a shame, but it's kind of, that's how it goes. There's always other music, But
how did you feel? How did you feel about that? Because you've said just now that you've tried to make more intelligent happy hardcore, and then you're now saying towards the end of the 90s that the quality did. Even Hicksy's admitted it. And he was a big part of that movement. He said the quality did die around towards the end.
It was
towards the end of the 90s. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I just felt it a shame, really. And there's no point. Well, at the time, I just thought there's no point in me making more of that, you know, to try and whatever, to try and make it fit. Or so I just thought I'll just leave it. And it was interesting to see certain nights. There used to be some nights going on in bowlers even. They were compulsion, they were called. And I said, and that in the end, I just said, if you want to put me on, that's great, but I will do a classic set sort of thing. It wasn't really old school back then, as you would call it, but I'll go on and play, you know, stuff that was 5 or 6 years old, you know, when it was a lot better. And they went, right, okay. But the crowd loved that because it broke up all the new stuff, you know, and they all went, yeah, great. We know all these tunes, which is obviously important, you know. And then they had a house room, and I said, well, just put me in there. I'll just play new house all day, you know, no problem there. It's quite hard house, really, you know what I mean? More tidy tracks and bits and pieces. So I was doing sort of that sort of stuff as well, you know. So yeah.
So what do you put down that dive in quality towards the end of the 90s too?
Yeah, I've no idea as such as to why, you know, like the quality of the song of the music would be less, you know, because normally you'd get someone to come along, well, I'll do this then, and then it makes it better again, and that didn't really work. Maybe the nights, you know, the actual events that went on weren't that good either. I don't know. I don't really know because once that happened, I wasn't really bothered about being or playing, you know, at that era. You know what I mean? There was a good 5 years of not playing a lot of hardcore, and when it got to, I did notice around about the mid 2000s. So it got to around 2005. Then I started hearing little bits from people and going, ooh, now that's a little bit better. That is a lot better. And inspired me then to sort of go, right, it was the end of 2004, I remember. I was driving a gig, and the guy, Paul, was sat next to me, and I said, 2005 is the year I'm going to do some more hardcore. And I did. And I just steamed into 2005, all these compilation albums and I did so much stuff, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But to go back to the when it was at its peak and you were producing stuff and it was going on bonkers as well. What was your vision for Visa and the tracks that you produced? Did you have one? Or again, are we talking, because Mark Archer, I interviewed Mark Archer recently, and by the way, go and watch that episode if you haven't, because it's really good. And he's like, basically everything was an accident. It was none of it was deliberate. It was all an accident. Was there no vision for Visa?
No, not at all. It's just always been my kind of hardcore pseudonym. That was all. So anything that was hard in that way went under Visa, and I just made tunes that suited that. There was, like I said before, with the clock tunes, you'd get this basic pop song and everything that was right for the commercial clubs and everything, but I'd get the ingredients of those to make a Visa mix, and everybody was going, oh, I love all the Visa, call it the Visa treatment, basically. So there was always a hardcore mix that you could play at a hardcore event, but they weren't clock, they were just went under the name of Visa instead. But all the ingredients and stuff.
What was your favourite Visa track?
I suppose the all-time one would have to be Let Me See You Move. Because it's still a bit iconic-y, but I suppose song-wise, and the most popular that people, which I love seeing if they're singing along and whatever, is Fly Away, I suppose. You know, they're the ones that have done the best over the years, yeah.
Well, what was it like seeing the ravers react to those tracks when you or other DJs dropped them? Because they were huge and everyone was playing them.
Yeah, it's lovely to know that they know the words and they happily, singing their hearts out, all sweaty and everything, and they just I just love it. It's just brilliant, So yeah, it's obviously a nice feeling. Yeah.
Were there any that you didn't like?
That I've made?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. some really horrible ones. No, they didn't come till later on though. There was we were in the, like I said, around 2000. We're talking 90s, but there were some compilations that came out, Hardcore Adrenaline and Hardcore Nation, and they were just churning and churning and churning out. And they go, right, with that one, and they were doing really well. You know, they were high up in the charts of the compilation album chart, but they just wanted another treat and another one. And I go, yeah, it's not really finished. That's not ready. Doesn't matter. No, we'll put it on. We'll put it on. So I was like, oh no. So yeah, there was a couple I was thinking, no, they're not good at all.
Is commercialism the death of creativity?
Yeah, it can be, you know, because if you're the problem being is that the people who want to release it, unless you release it yourself, but those who want to release something obviously want a success. But if you've made a success of one, they say, well, we want another one now. We want another one now. And that was the trouble with Clock. You've been in the top 10, you want another top 10. They don't want a top 20, they want another top 10. And it just goes on and you think, oh, bollocks to this. You know what I mean? It's not enjoyable anymore. So, like you say, if it's, you know, that the commerciality side of it does spoil, you know, having to be successful will spoil your creative. Definitely.
And those, the biggest tracks that you just talked about Visa, are the ones that gone down in history as the anthems. How well do you think they've aged?
No, they're obviously old sounding. Although, you know, I do at the moment. I'm doing some lockdown shows, and on a Thursday I'll do an hour of happy hardcore, and they're obviously all older tunes, and every now and again I'll throw that in, and it still sounds to me fine in different versions. I've got different mixes of them, and I think well, even when I do a gig, if it's a hardcore set, I'll throw that in, and they love it, you know. So yeah, it's aged all right, really. Some of the other things haven't so much, but in general. But I think if I'm doing a set that's relatively old school anyway, they're not looking for some new sound, are they? They know they're going to get the old tunes.
It's a nostalgia trip, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's a cheeky question. We asked you a little bit earlier about the money that you got from Clock. Well, what about Bonkers? Was the reality check from React heavy when it came through the letter?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. It wouldn't have been loads, although those Bonkers albums did do well. I couldn't put a figure on it. And if I could, I would say, but no, they weren't silly money. It just ends up in your list every 3 months or whatever it is. It wasn't that much.
What a funny way to earn a living. Phil Anderson on Facebook asks, how did you manage to get away with playing happy hardcore on a Sunday night on a main radio station? And did you have to fight for it, or was it easier than it looked?
Well, like I was saying, the first edition of this, it was it all started where the bosses were going, oh, what are you playing this funny music, which was house music back in '86. And, just to recap on what was said, is the bosses just said, okay, if the ratings are any good, we'll do it your way. And if not, you're going to have to do it our way. And luckily, throughout the time I was there, the ratings were great. So the bosses just left me to it. I could literally play anything. I played all sorts. I never got any flack for it whatsoever.
Fantastic. Love that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, though, ratings do talk, don't they? I mean, as from one radio presenter to another, if you've got smashing ratings, then you're safe. But when they go off a cliff, you're less safe. I'd be interested in this because I spent a bit of time living in Manchester around about 2006 and then again in about 2008 as a trainee journalist. And the people that I became friends with there who were Mancunians would always talk about you, and they would talk about your radio show and how much, they loved, you would be doing these happy hardcore shows and you got them into hardcore. How many people do you think you inspired into hardcore in your days through the radio show, and how does that make you feel?
It's just so brilliant, but I never thought certainly at the time that was what was going on. I just went on and played stuff on the radio, but I do get it all. Even now people will come up and it's so nice, even DJs would say, "Oh, it was you that got me into DJing. It's all down to you that I go out raving. I would never have done this if I hadn't heard your radio show." All that sort of thing, and it's lovely. You know what I mean? I just, again, that wasn't the plan. I just, I went on the radio and played music, and to have that is the nicest reaction, really. Definitely.
And when the scenes did split, why do you think the North mainly drifted towards a more European 4/4 kick drum sound, slightly cheesier perhaps, piano based, and not that sort of breakbeat jungle drum and bass direction? What was it about the North?
I've no idea. It's always been a bit more full on, and probably a bit more, commercial. As on the whole. So if you go to Scotland, it's that bit more again. You've got your dream frequencies and things. That style, they love it. It's more the time frequency and all that sort of very commercial, so-called rave music. But it's just areas. It's just strange how everywhere you go. But it's the same for like. A band like whoever is very successful in this country but can't break America. It's just down to territories and the way their preferences, really. I don't know why. You go to London and they don't like stomping Euro music or something. Somewhere does, but on the whole they don't.
It'd be really interesting to do some sort of study around this, whether there's because the further north you go, the harder the music is, right? That's how it is. Why is that? What is that about?
No, I don't know. Maybe we need because it's grim up north, we need more of that escape from it all.
It's grim up north indeed. We're here with Stu Allan, the Manchester legend. He's not grim. He's a very sunny character, surprisingly, given he's from Stockport. If you want to get in touch with us, you can do hello@the90sravepodcast.co.uk. Why don't you follow us on social media? We're on all of them: Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook. You just got to search for Raw, the 90s Rave Podcast. Also, if you're able to spare a few quid to keep us going, you can head over to gofundme.com/the 90s Rave Podcast. And a little donation really will help to keep us doing what we're doing. And hopefully you enjoy it. Well, that's it for another episode of Raw. And if you like what you've heard, we'd love you to get involved. All of us here at Raw HQ buzz hard off how much you, the Raw crew, enjoy our work, and your generous cash donations have been a huge help since our launch. But we're now a team of 5, putting in combined 80 hours a week for no wages. We've got loads of plans to go further, expand our team and offer, but that does mean that our costs are also increasing. So we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing, as you've done since we started. So please do check out our website. Initially, it's rawuk.com for interesting extra content and to get your hands on our first ever range of Raw merchandise. That's rawuk.com. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can donate to create more interesting and fun content on an ongoing basis, and you'll even get stuff in return. So head to patreon.com/rawukpods. That's patreon.com/rawukpods to see what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is the same, or if you're not bothered about membership but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or repeat donation, head to our website and click the PayPal link. That website URL, one more time, rawuk.com. Respect to you for your support and for getting to the end of this episode. Please keep supporting us and help ensure there's more quality content coming your way on a regular basis. Oi, oi.